Okay. Good afternoon, fellow students. So we soon have a student festival, as usual, annually. And also, I like to remind we hold the international symposium when qualitative professors convening, and we'll discuss the serious contemporary issue about commercial law. So from scholars from Japan and South Korea and also United States, we'll exchange insightful ideas to complement your study of commercial law. So I encourage you to attend and participate, and it will make it more homely, present, and excellent. So actually, the response of audience is critically important about the success of international symposium. So I like that one. So, how do you handle middle this term? Oh, it's just 4 weeks. We now maturate into international trade law. I hopefully suggest an interesting story about our neighborhood. Mr. Church case is very interesting. How do you perceive that controversy? Sentiment seems actually favor him or not? What is the conduct which is on becoming an officer? We previously experienced some police officers who had entertained sexual business. He had long time engaging popping up sexual something for others, and unrolled his comment and opinion about the girls he had a relationship with. Very corruptive. See, we public administrators often see the lower wage. The context of lower wage would be one factor for corruptive activities of government officials, and also undermine some of a fair trade, or it draws our attention that we are a trade student, student of international trade law. So one concept is how to structure the operation of fair market, untainted and purely based on a liberal competition, abridged by any other non-market factors, external factors. One factor was considered to be a corruption of a government office. There is one area of new attention, WTO policymakers or other OECD context of leadership has paid a sensitive attention. So in the dimension of OECD, we have some guideline, which is not mandatory, of course, is soft law, but very principle to regulate the corruptive activities. And the United States and many other notable trading states enacted a kind of a statute against corruptive activities. Anti-Corruption Act of the United States comes, and also United Kingdom has similar nature of statute. In the frontier European Union and also South Korea, we have some the kind of legislative dealings. How does this system come into play? It is not a matter of bribery. It's what a tendering of a free sexual opportunity. Is it bribery or not? It's one of criminal issues debated in courtroom also. But Mr. Chair raised here pure never violate any ethical requirement demanded by statute or this. Okay. So, the intense argument or contention is posed in the courtroom actually. We would be interested about the outcome. And actually, the issue involved in the case relates with some concept you see in the constitutional code for the constitutional tort. So it is very interesting area to demarcate between the line of public and private sphere. Constitution is actually grant a mandate in terms of a public law relationship. So it is based on the rule of a concept as a bulwark to sustain the rule of concept. Law evolves through the democratic form of governance. So one concept is the sanctity of a private sphere. So the sanctity was allegedly harmed in the argument of Mr. Chair. One factor to be noted would be a kind of constitutional theory. You know, the public figure doctrine, a public official. There are some policy needs to release the kind of the scope of persons from public risk. They are public figures. Since they are public, they may privately assume his status, or that is also required to guarantee the democratic process. So citizens also has a right to know, and media is what a pillar of institution to sustain the free democratic form of government, republicanism. So you may have awareness about a constitutional theory involving what a New York versus Sullivan. In the case, a police officer was defamed by falsehood of a newspaper article. In the court, the truth would be only defense in tort damages. Since it is impermissible, even if the Constitution cherishes freedom of press and most sublime liberty interest in this country. And so the freedom of expression may be restricted in concern and safeguard of a private interest, a very genuine nature of privacy, invasion of privacy, defamation, libelous expression would often be condemned by Mr. Che is now holding a current status as Chief Prosecuting Officer with some cases, the court merely see just a public figure, not public official. If he were to be entitled of a public official status, he should have maintained the authority title as a matter of law. If not, he is a mere public official, but the scrutiny of court would go say between two distinctions. Or you see a same for a public official and public figure. In any case, he is now a public official and may deserve a due dealings of law in terms of that light. In good case, we see a court position about a attorney who was involved in interesting divorce proceeding. Yeah, she is a very wealthy woman as client, as a wealthy woman, and there's some popularity across the American society. She's not actually a public figure, but the issue would rise about the attorney who represented the both proceedings. In another case, the Hustler magazine. So the court process I consider would be a forum that many of the constitutional court issues would arise. Interesting. Are you available of the outline in the projection? As a feature? I'm sure. In case. We left some more issues about ultra-sensitivity, and I suspect if you do not prepare the printout, I prepare directly 3 pieces of a printout available. So you may have the press. I once advised to publish my mailbox many printouts and other cover by students. I brought them in person to immediate delivery. So in the last class, you are introduced to the point of contention in terms of comparative perspective across the CISG, UCC, and Uniform Chinese Civil Code and Japanese Civil Code, and in some cases we looked into the main feature of a German Civil Code, a first notice requirement. It is actually influential in rules across the civil law countries. And I've said that the UNCITRAL adopted a balanced compromise between two legal traditions. So distinct nature of additional terms was incorporated to govern the case. The differences in your focus would be that the first notice is mandatory. It is statutory mandatory to invoke legal remedies against the breach of contract. So they have to place a no-fit notice in order to claim their rights to legal remedy. That is not the case. The additional terms ideated into CISJ is discretionary for the non-breaching party. It depends on the intent of non-breaching party whether he would allow additional terms to about a perfect tender and complete performance or not. However, if we opt for additional terms, he should stay to keep wait until the breaching party could perform within the period of additional time. If the time elapsed and a performance is not completed, then he is allowed to seek a legal remedy, for example, avoidance of contract, or damages, or specific performance. In theory, the continental European legal tradition would favor a specific performance in primal form of a legal remedy in contractual relationship. The less case in common law tradition, the lawyers, the legal institution of damages would be preferred as a principal instrumentality of a legal remedy. And also, I like to have some points about battle of the forms. As I've said, the international contract law often undertakes a lengthy negotiation process. They exchange a series of correspondence, letters, or a prima forma invoice, or letters of intent, or letters of compromise. Many types of communication. In content, of course, variable, flexible to on progress about the negotiation. So they have to confront with kind of problem arising from the context of lengthy negotiation. One would be the usual problem found in the international contract, what I call entirely a clause. The clause would be affected the prior dealings or correspondence or oral exchange of intent or ideas would be merged into final form of written contract, as I've said. And the other is, the entire clause would effectively bar the contention or argument based on the prior dealings, I've said, that will facilitate the points of controversy may be undesirably expanded. So the parties may well do by attending with the contractual property. That is one purpose the entire clause intended. And also the other way to counter the problem from the international trade negotiations would be establishing some of rule against the battle of forms argument. The controversy involves the prearranged forms, the the parties will utilize through the course of business operation. Almost all enterprise forms would prepare some of pre-arranged form, and the form would include a fine print on the back side usually, and the minor revision, and also very complicated with a extended provisions about many conceivable possibilities. Actually, the clauses often include some of misfortune and undesired event. So the parties naturally dislike to read the printout, the printed forms. It is a matter of human intuition, and they like to see the bright side. And also, it is very complicated and perplexing in some cases for the normal business people. Then the problem arose if the contract may fail or non-performance would occur. It is, the dispute may arise from the breach of contract or defaulted a good or a frustration of words or other force majeure, the scope of incidents plus the force majeure. Then the parties turn to see the forms. It is often probable that the terms and conditions contradict each other. The used form by both parties would bear some of different arrangement or terms and conditions. Then what form will govern the contractual relationship? Of course, first of all, we have to consider if the contract was very performed. However, in many cases, the performance was also already pending, and the contractual process was completed in some substantive extent. Then, more critical matter, which form will govern the contractual relationship? Which form could offer a basis how to resolve the dispute which arises from contract. So, unilateral principles have some straightforward way of resolution about this controversy. The contradicted terms or conditions could be excluded from content of agreement. Legally legally verified as the rights and duties of contract. And the policy position also go very similar in the context of a CISG. So the U.S. business was familiar only with the UCC will be exposed to unexpected consequences under the CISG in a battle of reform scenario. So you have a point about subtle difference between UCC and CISG. Despite the similarities between unilateral principles and CISG. Section 207 of the UCC provides that between merchants, additional terms contained within a purported acceptance become part of the contract unless the offeror expressly limits acceptance to the terms of the offer. They materially alter the terms of the offer or non-notification of objection to them has already been given or is given within a reasonable time if notice of them is received. So, how much extent of contradiction could be found? Is it material? Well, what is material in concept? For example, price and quantity of contract would well be classed in that category. And also, the dispute settlement agreement would often be dealt as material. In that case, UCC provides a rule and that is approached in different ways. However, I suppose both laws would practically come closer in effect. Article 19 of the CISG resolves the conflict in the exchange of forms differently than the Section 2207 of the CISG. Article 19 provides two methods by which additional terms contained within a purported acceptance do not become part of the complete contract. First, the offeror may prevent incorporation of additional terms in the contract by providing an oral or written objection to the offeree without undue delay. So in this case, the contract formation will not be sustained. In addition, a purported acceptance that contains material alterations of the original offer serves as a rejection of the offer, but constitutes a counteroffer. So in this case, the communication will create the power for the offerer to receive the counteroffer. And also, you have known the concept between invitation to offers and offer. Actually, it is a legal issue how to define the offer. What specificity is required to entitle a status as an offer. That concern will also be dealt in the formation of contract in both instrumentalities, CISG and UNIDROIT principles. And unlike the UCC, the CISG defines material to include, among other things, additional or different terms relating to price, payment, quality, and quantity of goods, place and time of delivery, extent of one party's liability to the other, or the settlement of dispute. So for example, a seller responds to a purchase order with conforming invoice. The conforming invoice, however, includes an additional term that limits purchaser's ability to make a claim for breach of warranty by providing a short notice period. Then, what is the legal effect of the additional notice requirement? So it bears some of additional terms which contradict the forms of other party. Does it go into legal effect? If construed as a material modification, the CISG and the UCC would acknowledge the contract formation, incorporating the additional term. Article 19.3 of the CISG, however, broadly defines material to include the extent of one's party's ability to the other. In essence, the CISG adopts the old common law mirror image rule, in which the acceptance must be a mirror image of the offer. Thus, in the CISG, the additional term converts the attempted acceptance into counteroffer, resulting in a finding of no contract. The following a case, as you see in projection, titled Shuttle Charles Wise versus Support USA, demonstrates the operation of the material provisions of CISG. So CISG is a very successful product, and some fine athletic views will incorporate between two stringent traditions. Of course, could be agile to compromise in case. And the CIC, however, is also wise not to intervene in the sensitive area involving public policy. For example, they are comprehensive across the spectrum of personal autonomy, party autonomy, sorry, freedom of expression. The area of a freedom of expression could be concerned extensively. However, they did not handle the kind of issues. For example, capacity of parties, a minor, some mental state required to enter various contract. That is, principally depends on the policy of a specific nation. It is wise to let it go in their way. Then the question should be resolved by operation of a conflict of laws. The jurists have to investigate the conflict of laws to choose a proper law which governs the contract. And also, it is interesting in comparison with unilateral principle that it does not provide the causes to revoke the contract. For example, undue influence to invalidate what they took, validly granting the right to avoid the contract, revoke the contract. For example, economic jurists may be one cause to invalidate the contract. And also, mistake was dealt in terms of a revocation of contract. Without a gross negligence, mistake of one party may offer the ground to revoke the contract. However, the mistake should be serious. A minor mistake would not qualify for the right to revoke the contract. And also, misrepresentation was articulated as a cause to revoke contract in unilateral principles. That scope of dealings would be waived in CISG. The CISG is silence about that issue. And also many issues involving public policy concern widely not there. And you can see also, for example, a frustration and force majeure clause. This issue also bears similarities and differences across the global jurisdiction. Typically, the nomenclature varies across jurisdiction. For example, French jurisdiction uses the word a force majeure. However, a British jurisdiction uses term frustration of purpose, contract. And the United States employed the impracticable doctrine to deal with this concern. And unilateral principles interestingly divide the kind of circumstance or situation into two concepts, impediment and a force majeure. That is a closed concept in our operation. However, it differs in legal terms and its effect. To say impediment is just effectuate the legal effect about the right to renegotiate the contract. So the idea is the underlying assumption was for grossly undermined. So gross disparate context of a contract should be renegotiated. For example, a extreme rise of a material resource cost, material cost, or some extreme fluctuation of foreign currency would be classed in this dimension. You see, so then the parties would be reasonably allowed to negotiate the contract. The difference from force majeure lies in the force majeure leads to exemption of damages. So non-performance leads to legal remedy. For example, avoidance of contract, or a claim to perform as specifically in the contract, the specific performance may be sought, and also notably damages may be claimed. However, in the circumstances where we find a force majeure event was happened, then the damages could be waived as a matter of law. CISG would not borrow the idea of impediment. And impediment would be influenced by the German Civil Code and the philosophical deliberation and analysis into deep nature, in-depth nature of a private contract. The concept would be less compatible with a universal commercial dealings. So the force majeure clause lists types of events in CISG that excuse the parties from the performance of the contract. Force majeure events may include wars, blockades, strikes, governmental interference, or approval. Particularly, you need to know that international contract may be involved more highly, massively with a governmental regulation. So some of a public laws to require a government permit or license, or some of process mandated by the trade regulation. So this event would frequent as a force majeure consideration. And transportation problems. The parties are free to recognize any event as one to be given force majeure effect. A force majeure clause should be custom drafted to take into account the type of industry or the countries and the type of carriage involved. The discussion of the Harriscom versus Svenker is one of leading case involving the force merger controversy. Another materials will be available later, illustrate the importance of a properly drafted force merger clause for avoiding liability. And actually, the Battle of Forms is one of popular issue. So we may be wise to see some of specific context of court argument. So Chateau de Charles Weinzerti versus Sabet US. How we pronounce? So this case was decided in 2003, and per curiam. What does this word? Per curiam? It means the majority, court opinion is decided in unanimity. All justices agree on delivery of court opinion. And also, you may see some of word en banc in the court document. En banc, what does that mean? It means all convening forum of all justices. It has origin from French word, medieval French word, and actually involves some implications about the evolution of Western law. Chateau Sam's Wines, a Canadian company, appeals the dismissal of its action for breach of contract and related claims arising out of its purchase of wine hops from Survey, French company, and Survey, a wholly owned California subsidiary. Survey France manufactures and sells special wine corks that it claims will not cause wine to be spoiled by cocktail. The distasteful flavor that some corks produce. It sells these corks through a wholly owned California subsidiary, Survey USA. In February 2020, after some preliminary discussions about the characteristics of Survey corks, Chateau Cham winery from Ontario, Canada, agreed by telephone with Survey USA to purchase a certain number of corks at a specific price. The parties agreed on payment and shipping terms. No other terms were discussed, nor the parties have any history of prior dealings. Later this year, Chateau de Chams placed a second telephone order for corks on the same terms. In total, Chateau de Chams ordered 1.2 million corks. So, Chateau Chams claims that in 2001, it noticed that the wine bottled with Sabas corks was tainted by cork flavors. Chateau Chamon filed in federal district court in California against Survey France and Survey USA, alleging claims for breach of contract, a strict liability, breach of warranty, a false advertising, and an unfair competition. Survey France and Survey USA filed a motion to dismiss based on the forum selection clauses. The district court held that the forum selection clause was valid and enforceable and dismissed the action. This appeal ensued. So, what is the question? The question before us is whether the forum selection clauses in Survey France invoices were part of any agreement between the parties. The disputes in this case arise out of an agreement for sale of goods from a French party and the United States party, the Canadian party. So this is an international sales contract and involves the better forms issue. So let's get the last part of a court opinion. Nothing in the convention suggests that the failure to object the party unilateral attempt to alter materially the terms of an otherwise valid agreement is an agreement within the terms of Article 25. Here, no circumstances exist to conclude Chateauchamps conduct evidence an agreement, reject contention that because France multiple invoices created an agreement as to proper form with Chateauchamps. The parties agreed in 2 telephone calls to a purchase of coke be shipped in 11 batches. In such circumstances, a party's multiple attempts to alter an agreement unilaterally do not show effect. So the case exposes some interesting issue which covers U.S. courts will apply the CIC in accordance with its terms contract for the sale of goods between parties whose places of business are in different states that are parties to the CIC. The first issue is whether CIC is governing norm in this contractual relationship. Then what is next? Under the CIC, contracts may be modified or terminated by mere agreement of the parties without further formalities. So you see, no formality requirement, penetrated UNIDROIT principles and also CIC. UCC has different position about modification of contract. It requires a written modification. CIC provides additional different terms relating to the settlement of dispute are considered material alterations to terms of an offer. That is exactly on the point we reviewed previously. Nothing in the CIC provides that the failure to object to parties' unilateral attempt to materially alter the terms of an agreement is itself an agreement to such alterations. So unilateral attempt does not satisfy this initial intent. Okay, for your further review, I'll advise. Then, we're free from the pressure of no student from the next class. I'll stop here. Any questions? Okay, thank you for your attention. See you in the next class.